Lanterns episode 2 has now released, and it was another amazing episode with a lot of stuff to break down. So that is what I will be doing here for you guys, is giving you my episode 2 breakdown of Lanterns, giving you my review reaction to some of the things that go down in this episode. So please, before we start, feel free to let me know in the comments what you thought of Lanterns episode 2. I would love to know. So kicking things off with episode 2 of Lanterns, we open up with Hal Jordan waking up John so that way he can teach John how to fly. But an interesting thing about this scene to me is how Hal is trying to get Jordan to fly, because we know flying is natural for Hal given his time as a pilot, but for John, who was not a pilot, it is a lot more difficult for him, and because of that, instead of flying, he creates a sentient bird. Now what's interesting about this scene to me is the fact that in the comics this is actually one of John's skills that he gets, and it's called ring power physiology, and this allows him to use his powers without the need for a ring, and that is so cool to me that they are bringing something like this into the show. And in this scene, it also looks to me like Hal is a bit intimidated and does not know completely how strong John is, which is also very interesting. But now moving on, since John does not know how to fly, Hal sends John back to his house to get the lantern because the lantern ring is running low on energy. And while John goes to get the lantern, Hal goes and investigates. But now with the two characters split up, I want to break down each of their storylines in this episode, starting with Hal. Now, an interesting thing that I want to really quickly touch upon is how empty the town looks, because later on in the episode when Hal goes to the hospital after being shot, he sees that there is not only nobody in the hospital, but all the machines and equipment are still wrapped up and are not used at all. Now, I've heard a lot of different speculation online if it's robots or aliens. In my opinion, it is probably aliens, because we're a lot more familiar with aliens in this universe and with anything to do with Green Lantern. So I really do think it's aliens. But yeah, this is not the only instance where he doesn't see anybody, because when he is driving around the town, he sees absolutely nobody as well. Now, you could really do one of two things here. You could say to me, well, they were all at the meeting with the sheriff, which I would agree with you, that does make sense, but I feel like this town could hold more of a capacity for more people. So I don't believe that that is the entire town, and if it is, well, we have our answer as to why the town is completely empty. But even with everybody being in that conference with the sheriff, I still don't see why there would be nobody in a hospital. Now, the sheriff does say, well, not everybody gets shot like Hal did, but people could be going to the hospital for other reasons other than being shot. So that is all very interesting to me. But another interesting thing about these scenes with Hal is the fact that he goes through a bunch of metal detectors, but the metal detectors aren't detecting metal. Now, these detectors were able to detect if there was any aliens that showed up to the football game, and if there were, they would be killed. But now, really quickly, before I move on, I want to talk about how awesome and well done the detective side of the show is being handled. Because we knew from episode 1 that this would be more of a detective show, that Hal would be kind of solving mystery after mystery. And I thought that would be kind of boring after a little while, but nope, they are doing this perfectly. And I am entertained throughout the entire episode from start to finish, and I really love this detective feel for the show. It is really well done and well written. And usually I'm not the biggest fan of detective-esque shows, but this one just does it so well. But now really quickly, I want to touch upon the alien detector that I was talking about earlier. Now, the thing that intrigues me and that I really want to talk about is the fact that this small town has that type of technology to identify these aliens. And you could even see that makes Hal really suspicious and is making him question who these people work for and answer to get the technology that we see in this show, the alien detectors, because we've already established in episode 1 that these aliens, they're able to have a lot of human traits, like having fake blood, x-rays, and they could of course trick you into thinking that they are human. And that all makes Hal suspicious as to who he thinks William is working for. Now, William is probably going to be the character known as the Black Hand from the comics, who will be one of the first Black Lanterns. And I think this because William seemed very interested in Hal's lantern ring and where the power comes from. But yeah, it's all very interesting stuff, and I cannot wait to see where this goes. But now moving on to the story of Jon Stewart's character for this episode, he goes to Hal's mansion to find his lantern ring charger, and he's going through Hal's stuff, and he finds Hal's Green Lantern suit, which honestly, the suit kinda does look cool. When I saw it in episode 1 when Hal was on the TV, it looked like a cool enough suit for the show, and it is kind of growing on me now that we're actually seeing him wear it in this episode, but it it still kind of looks a little bit weird, but overall I think it's a decent suit. But it is here where we get to see the pocket dimension when John is looking for the lantern ring charger. But interesting enough, when John is getting into his safe, he has to use the password Mogo doesn't socialize. Now Mogo is a living Green Lantern in the form of a planet, which is very interesting. But another thing that is interesting is the fact that Hal doesn't carry around the lantern charger at all, and the fact that John had to go and get it from his house. That to me is ridiculous. I feel like Hal, knowing that the ring can lose energy over time, it would have made sense for him to have his lantern charger. But it's kind of ridiculous that he didn't, because you'd think that Hal is smart enough to always carry it with him, but I guess not. Another interesting thing to me in this scene is how quickly Hal says the Green Lantern oath, because he basically just speeds right through it. Now this could be one of two things. One, it could just mean that he's just fully memorized it, which he has, and he says it really fast because it just comes natural to him. Or he doesn't like saying it. He kind of wants to rush through it so that way he could be done with it. But now moving on back to John, he then gets kidnapped as soon as he leaves Hal's house by what seems to be aliens, but I'm not too sure. But they basically explain to John what manhunters are. Now in case you were wondering and you don't really know the lore, manhunters are the first creation of the Guardians before the Green Lanterns, but these beings went rogue, killed a bunch of civilizations, which then caused the creation of the Lanterns to stop the Manhunters. Now the main guy, people are saying online that it can be, is Atrocitus, which is very interesting, and that would be awesome if this was him. Now this would be him in human form, but maybe we'll see him turn into his normal form by the end of the show, but I don't really know. But now moving on from that, really quickly I want to go back and touch upon something that I forgot to mention earlier. The police officer in this show, the sheriff of this town, is actually a transfer from Gotham. Now, I wanted to mention this because they dropped the city of Gotham in this episode, which is really cool, the fact that they mentioned it, but I just really wanted to mention that little thing. But after this scene, John goes back to the hotel and tells Hal that there could be a manhunter in this town, and that leads Hal to suit up and go to the only person who knows more information about manhunters, Sinestro. And we also find out in this episode that Hal was the one who put Sinestro behind bars because he went against the Guardians and even killed one of them. Now this is very interesting because Sinestro was the one to train Hal, so to have to throw your mentor and teacher behind bars, that is so crazy to me. Now Sinestro does tell Hal in this scene that if a manhunter were to be on Earth, it would be the second biggest threat to him and to this world, with the first being John, which obviously can be some mind games. I don't see why he would be the biggest threat to the world, but we'll just have to wait and see with that. But I'm very, very intrigued with the words that Sinestro said to Hal, because they could either be true or completely false. It's really hard to say, because like I said, this could just be Sinestro playing mind games on Hal. But that is where episode 2 ends. This was another great episode for the show, and I cannot wait to see what we get with the rest of the episodes that are to come in the next couple weeks. But this show is just so great with the way it's doing the detective work, with the way it's connecting to the DCU, giving us so many cool Easter eggs and references as well. It is just a really great show so far, and I cannot wait to see how it continues in the following weeks, because this was another banger episode, and the story was so well written and executed in this episode. Just having John and Hal be separated and doing their own thing was really creative, and the stories for both of their characters within this episode were very, very well done and well written, and the ending was so awesome for this episode. And the fact that they're raising the stakes so early on, this is only the second episode, but they're raising the stakes so high so early on. It is so amazing how they're able to pull all of this off. And like I said, I truly cannot wait for the upcoming episodes for this show. But those are just my thoughts on episode 2 of Lanterns. Please, like I said, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode. Maybe some thoughts and theories. I would love to hear it all in the comments down below. But with that being said, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.